Batman 155, Legacy number 920. Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Fornes on the art. So a bit of an art change here.
Look, I'm never going to be mad at Fornes art.
Oh, of course not. Of course.
Ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
Do I want it tied to a soap opera, though? I don't think I do.
Well, before we even get to anything else, for some reason on the cover, Batman's fighting a bunch of people in Court of Owls masks, and there's absolutely nothing in the issue that is even remotely like this.
There's a distinct lack of Court of Owls in this issue.
Yeah. So you sounded quite negative there, and
yes,
I kind of get where you're coming from, but I think this is easily Zdarsky's best arc on this book.
Look, I'm not saying necessarily that soap opera is bad, right? I just, the type of content, so like when I think of Fornes art, right, I'm thinking it's like dark and noir and moody, right? And it's the books that we've had Fornes art in, it matches. I don't think the art here matches the tone that Zdarsky is using. Because this is very kind of silly soap opera-y elements of Batman, and it's not necessarily bad. I just like, I don't know, man.
I think I disagree that that's what the tone's supposed to be. I think you're seeing that there's an affair plot going on and just immediately jumping to soap opera. I don't think that's the tone that the book's supposed to have.
Man, I don't know, because it feels like when we get to the reveal of Gordon and all that stuff, it feels like a soap opera. And then when we get to the Riddler thing with the brother, this lost brother that no one has seen, feels like a soap opera. Like, and again, knowing with Zdarsky, I feel like that is what the intended tone's supposed to feel like, and I don't necessarily think he manages it effectively.
I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean, knowing Zdarsky, you think that's what the tone's meant to be?
So like the book was silly early on with the, like, we would complain about the Because Batman of it, right? He survives the fall from space, and then we did the whole go through the different multiverse type stuff, and there's always kind of a campy tone to it. So maybe campy's the word that I'm looking for, right? That I would expect from Zdarsky. And here I don't know, it didn't, none of the story stuff landed with me.
I just don't think, because to me the tone of this arc has been so different from the rest of the arcs that he's done that I can't compare them. It almost feels like a different writer at points. Now that's not to say that I like everything here, because the Captain Star, or whatever his stupid name is like he's still
a bit of a sledgehammer.
He's sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thrilled with the implication that Gordon might be the killer at the end of the last issue. This issue spends a lot of time in flashbacks for the first good half of the issue or so, explaining what the backstory to all this is and what was going on with Gordon. And it turns out that over a series of meetings, ended up having an affair with Mayor Nakano's wife, and she was feeling very isolated because her husband never had time for her, wouldn't come home till late. I think at one point she said she felt like a single mom, and she's just living with a roommate that used to be her husband. And Gordon, on the flip side, is very disillusioned with his PI work, because all he's doing is infidelity cases and things like that. There's nothing, he's not helping save people. Yeah. He's not like putting bad people away. It's all not petty, but just stuff it's stuff that he doesn't see the grand sense of purpose in. In fact, he says it multiple times in this issue that he doesn't really know what job that would fulfill him that isn't just being commissioner again, because he felt like he had a sense of purpose with that. So
yeah, he tells Bullock that, he goes, I know we need the money, but these are insurance scams and infidelity cases. It's depressing. Yeah.
So the point I'm getting at, though, is that he's in a pretty bad place. He's down. So it kind of sets up where both of the characters are, that they might find each other. And he's just kind of there to comfort her, because she asks him to look into her husband, because she thinks Nakano was having an affair. And he wasn't. He was just working too much. He was just completely consumed with...
He was having an affair with Gotham. He was the mayor.
But they end up bonding. They end up holding hands. Ultimately, he ends up saving her when some people try to come and kidnap her or whatever. And they end up kissing, and it's a whole thing. Now, as I was reading this, I was sort of thinking, oh, really? We're doing like Gordon having an affair with, well, Gordon's not having an affair because he's single, but like, you know, Nakano's wife having an affair with Gordon. We're doing like a Gordon romance. Do I like that as an idea? And I'm not actually sure I do like it in concept necessarily, but I will say, at the very least, this felt like an actual swing to me. It felt like, oh, we're actually taking a character and doing something with them that isn't just, oh, we're going to do like a bunch of nostalgia trip and weird Zoo and R bullshit. This, because while this is doing flashbacks, this isn't a retcon. This is actually doing something new with a character. Yes, obviously Gordon like has had affair stories like you know back in like year one and stuff like that in the past, but this felt like it was actually trying to move a character forward. So I at the very least appreciated that. I can understand what the attempt here is, and that they're doing something different with it. And I do think the investigation side of it is quite interesting. The other part that I do find quite interesting, because you know, ultimately about halfway or so through the issue, we're in present day, we're in the interrogation room, and Bullock's been hearing all this story from Gordon, like the backstory to the affair and everything, and the fact that he was there with Nakano right before Nakano died. And it leaves it kind of ambiguous as to whether or not Gordon actually killed him.
That's some of my favorite art in the thing. It goes with him drawing his weapon, right? And then it kind of fades to black, but it leaves Gordon's glasses in red. Like very, very, very good art storytelling there.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And what I did like, though, is this idea that Batman, when he speaks to Bullock, and Bullock's like, hey, there's a lot of compelling evidence. I don't really want to believe it, but like, it seems like it could be him that did it. And Batman's like, no, it wasn't him. He didn't do it, and I'm going to prove it. But we actually get this nightmare scene in the very next page where Batman has this nightmare where he walks in and he's what he thinks is his parents having sex as a child, but it's actually his dad with another woman. And then he sees Gordon covered in blood. And I actually really liked this scene because it was basically this idea of Batman terrified that the two men that he actually has as role models, that he sees as upstanding men, are actually guilty of doing bad things. So the idea that his dad, I mean, again, this never like really necessarily happened or whatever, but the idea of him thinking about his dad having an affair and then, you know, seeing Gordon covered in blood and that he's like, wait, am I the only good man? Is no one living up to my sense of ideals? And then seeing him feel kind of tortured by that at the back computer where he's sitting there in shadow and not knowing what to do. I thought, oh, this is actually an interesting thing to challenge Batman with, is the idea that the people he believes in end up going down in his estimation, and like you know, the threat of that. Now, admittedly, the part that I'm the least interested in is the you know, the potential long lost brother coming for the money. It could go somewhere interesting, but right now I don't have really much to go on other than just, oh, we're doing this.
No, and again, the Fornes art there when it does get to Riddler and that whole thing with the Enigma tech, and it goes from like the dark kind of grimy stuff that we're used to with Fornes and a lot of the shadows and the street level to like Enigma being in this high rise, and yeah, the colors are brighter. Everything's kind of got this twinge of green to it, you know, and it kind of changes the mood of the book a little bit. So I thought that was a nice breakup from when I was reading, that we get to that aspect.
I think one of the reasons why I think this arc is working so well is that it just feels so much more confident. It feels like he's setting up a lot of supporting characters that are going to feed into his story in one way or another. I think everything feels a lot more put together than the previous arcs did. But I mean, you know, tastes may vary and whatnot, but I think I am liking this a lot more than his previous arc. I'm not dreading reading this as much as I was for the last several months. But Batman goes back to the scene of the crime to investigate and try and figure out if Gordon did it or not. And he finds like a piece of evidence, a bit of plastic, that ends up being quite important because he goes to Gordon in the interrogation room at the station and presents him with evidence that shows Gordon leaving the scene of the crime with a bag seemingly covered in blood with maybe like the murder weapon and whatever, and he's like, you did this. But then it takes a bit of a turn where Gordon's like, oh, did I do it? I did it, didn't I? And he's like, he basically says that he doesn't remember it, he just kind of blacked out. And then Batman has the realization as things are like going, because the alarms in the station start going off and everything else. And he examines the glasses, because the big thing here is that like the plastic that he found doesn't quite like fit the glasses that he's wearing. What happened to them? And it turns out there's Mad Hatter tech in the glasses. So yes, Gordon technically pulled the trigger, but it seems like he was being controlled with Mad Hatter technology. It was mind control. So Gordon's somewhat off the hook. I thought that was a reveal that made some sense based on Batman lore. Well, it works.
If I remember, they did bring up Hatter. It might be that I'm reading too many Batman stuff, but I remember Hatter being brought up earlier in the arc, I think by Riddler, right? So again, that was also a bit of a payoff here. But I do like how Batman, when he goes to present this, right, he talks about, it's like, all the cameras didn't get anything, but there were reflections, right? And it's in the reflection that he sees it. So it's that attention to detail that also pairs with the glasses and that little piece, and that's how he discovers the Tech. How do you say his last name? Is it Jervis Tech?
Yeah, Tech.
Okay. They find his technology in there too. So little fun piece of detective work there.
But notably also a question mark, because Riddler can't help but brand that he's the one that's done this. And like Batman realizes that there's like a hidden T, Enigma Tech, so it's actually Enigma Tech.
Yep.
So yeah, basically the alarms all go off because Vandal Savage doesn't like Batman, and when he finds out he's in his police station, sends all the cops after him. Yeah, like I kind of like this issue. I'm kind of surprised to say it, because I wasn't expecting to, because I kind of liked the first two issues, but I did say last time that I don't know how I feel about this direction it's taken at the end, but it does feel like a pretty solid like Batman story that's maybe a bit more focused on the character dynamics and the detective work than it is the big bombastic, there's a killer robot and like the inner mind is like Zur-En-Arrh is like coming to fight him and all that. That went on for far too long for a start, but this feels like a pretty decent Riddler story with apparently a bit of Mad Hatter stuff thrown in there. And I always like having Gordon get a bit of character development and actually getting to advance his, like who he is a bit.
Yeah,
that's kind of nice. So no, very. I don't know. I think it worked for me. I never once really felt like I get why you're saying soap opera, because yes, if you just say what it's doing out loud, there's an affair and there's like a long lost brother who's come out of the, but I'm not expecting the long lost brother to be a brother. I was expecting. I don't know what I'm expecting, but
I'm waiting for it to be a Riddler play of some kind, right? Because it's part of the gimmick for him to take over the shares in Wayne Tech.
Well, yeah, because he says he's not just going to merge the companies, he's going to acquire the company, and the lady from Wayne Enterprises is like, what?
Yeah, so yeah. So just, again, it was a bit campy in those elements. So, but it was fine. Like, it didn't upset me. I didn't want to, I don't want to give up like I've had with ZDARSKY in the past.
And let's not discount the fact that Fornes is probably enhancing this quite a bit for me. Like,
yeah, the art is by far the best part of this issue.
Yeah, I mean, the tone has helped so much, and the fact that Fornes is so good at just regular scenes, and by regular scenes I mean not action scenes. I'm talking about scenes where it's more character drama, it's moments of tension, it's moments of all the stuff in the Gordon flashbacks. It's basically two people falling for each other, and the awkward silences that lead to them bonding and talking about like their troubled lives and where they are and all that. All that stuff is enhanced so much by Fornes, giving it so much weight that I found myself getting drawn into it well enough, despite the fact that on paper, if you'd said, this issue is going to be about how Gordon was having a romance with Nakano's wife, on paper that doesn't sound that compelling. Yeah. But I didn't hate it as I was reading it, I have to be honest.
Yeah, well, and Fornes gets the body language down there too, right? Where you don't really notice they're holding hands at first when they're walking through the park before he saves her.
Yeah, because that's before the kiss. That's before they sort of confirm that this is a thing.
but it's right there. You know what I mean? If you pay attention. So yeah, just Fornes on the art, and then
I think from a writing point of view, it also does enough to make you realize why they're falling for each other. Like Gordon has just went out of his way to save her. He's put his life on the line to make sure she's safe when her own husband can't even like make time to come home for her
or the kid.
So he's putting in more effort than her own husband is. So clearly you can see why she'd be attracted to that. And she's also giving him this sense of purpose, like someone worth saving, effectively, when he's feeling like he's lost his purpose a little bit. Like you can see why the attraction is there. Now, when he starts talking about, oh, they're all going to move to Metropolis together and like be a new family, that's where I'm like, I don't know if I quite buy that you'd be jumping to that, but you know, that's whatever. But then again, is Jarvis Tetch's like technology already kicking in at that point?
On there, yeah. Well, also we have to go off of that stuff. Whereas, you know, is Gordon an unreliable narrator at a certain point?
Yeah, unreliable, and also how much of the romance is even part of the Tetch stuff? Like, I mean, how long has he been influenced by that? I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, there was that, and then just the scenes with like Bullock, like the fact that I always associate Bullock with not wanting to deal with Batman, right? But now that Gordon's off the force, he's kind of become the point man there. And so when Bullock has to deal with Batman, and just the way that Fornes is handling it, again with the body language, they're always so far apart, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's good. But I think the idea that when Gordon's the one in trouble, the idea that Bullock doesn't even hesitate to go to Batman when he doesn't normally want to do that, he doesn't like going to Batman. I think it's a good little character bit there.
But like just the whole like their whole talk on that roof where he tells him that he didn't do it, and just how far apart Harvey's standing there, and then when Bruce jumps off the building to get that glorious half page, and he's still on top of it, and it just shows still the distance between these two. Their only unifying factor is their admiration of Gordon.
They both care about Gordon. That's what's bonding them.
And so you know. But yeah,
but I think, you know, even the brother plot that I'm not necessarily knowing if I like it. It kind of just depends where it goes and who it actually is, because I don't expect it's really going to be a brother. I suspect there'll be a reveal of some kind.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's a well constructed arc in that it's a running plot thread that I'm remembering very easily, and it feels like it's dancing between its A plots and its B plots really well. It feels like a well put together, crafted story, in a way that I didn't think his last several arcs in Batman were.
Yeah.
So.
And that's fair too. I just kind of the campier tone rearing its head for me, coming around. I was just like, you know. But then being offset with the Fornes art and whatever, you know. Which, again, looking back through it. So I read this early in the week. Reading back through it as we were talking, I was definitely too hard at the beginning, right? But that's because I was drawn in so much with the Fornes art. So. You know, it in the moment it didn't seem, but going back through and seeing how he's playing with the colors and everything, it does end up matching more than I had originally thought.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Batman 155?
I'm gonna 7.5.
It's a lot more positive than you sounded, to be honest, but I mean, that's my problem. I'm gonna go 8. It's I dare say that Zdarsky's starting to feel more like the Batman run that I thought a Chip Zdarsky would write back before he started doing it. Like, when I was thinking, oh, based on his Daredevil run, what type of book would his Batman be? This is getting closer to what I think I imagined in some way. So
only took till his last arc.
That's right. He's almost off the book. That's so stupid. Oh, that's annoying.
Hush 2 is coming.
That's right. Hush 2 is upon us. Which, if nothing else, like good or bad, I can't imagine that's going to be boring to talk about.
Yeah. So we'll have something.